The next set of use cases is from logistics and production planning. Let's look at the first one, which is defaulter prediction. This is mostly concerned with predicting if a given customer, person, or entity is going to default on some sort of accounts payable. Mostly, this type of a project or initiative is highly valuable for banking businesses where you want to determine if a given customer is going to default on a loan or not. While banking is a very popular use case, another very popular use case is also logistics and supply chain management. Where in logistics and supply chain, you want to predict if a given supplier is going to meet a delivery commitment or not. That may be very crucial for major projects or for even operational purposes as well. Next type of project is fraud detection. Fraud detection concerns with predicting if a given transaction is fraudulent or not. Transactions can be of very different types. The most common use case of fraud detection is predicting if a given credit card transaction is a fraudulent transaction or not. Mostly in credit card, very, very common use case. However, fraud detection is not just limited to credit card frauds, it applies to multiple industries. Another popular use case is insurance frauds, frauds with setting up new accounts, product returns related frauds, especially for e-commerce firms. When customers are sending back some of the products that they already purchased back to the e-commerce firm, there might be some sort of a fraud happening in those instances also. And detecting fraudulent products and even fraudulent seller activity, these kind of fraud detection is also very commercially viable. Next is parts demand forecasting. This is a bit different from the demand forecasting that we saw earlier. This is related more specifically to parts or subcomponents of the final end product. This is very much applicable for manufacturing industries where they sell some sort of a physical product and that product is made up of multiple different subcomponents. Now, how it is different from end product forecasting is you need to make room for production uncertainty such as parts wastage, delivery delays from suppliers, and uncertainties in demand fluctuations from the customer side. So the reasons can vary from industry to industry and the practices and needs can change from company to company. So you need to take care of all those aspects when you are doing a project on parts demand forecasting. Next is delivery delay prediction. Here, this is pertaining mostly to supply chain and logistics, where for the various shipments that are coming in, you want to predict if a given shipment from a given supplier is going to be delayed or not. This is necessary because you need to know this beforehand so that the respective department, that the logistics and production control department, can make room for an alternate method of fulfillment. Next is predicting the optimal safety stock. This also applies to manufacturing and logistics, and it mostly pertains to predicting how much safety stock should the respective organization should hold for a given part, so that if there is some sort of a uncertainty or fluctuations for various reasons, you won't have to stop the production line. So the companies keep sufficient safety stock for the individual parts usually. Now, if you store extra safety stock for a given part, it is going to be stored up capital. And if you are going to reduce that inventory to a certain extent, you are effectively freeing up the capital that you have invested in already. And that would in turn alternately free up the cash flow for that respective organization. On the other hand, you don't want to reduce the safety stock so much that during emergency, it should not come to a situation that you are forced to stop your production line or some sort of a manufacturing activity itself gets halted. But usually the case is for large companies, there is a good amount of opportunity for them to reduce or optimize the safety stock and free up a good amount of stored capital that is stored in the form of safety stock, which actually is basically excess inventory. Next is condition monitoring. This pertains mostly to products and equipments that are already sold and are used by customers at various different locations. This is mostly applicable to electronic items, cars, heavy machinery, and so on. This can actually be of very great help because it can give you warning notifications to users to do some sort of a preventive maintenance or identify potential attrition of the users also in some cases. So these are some of the very commonly used use cases when it comes to logistics and production planning across various industries. Now let's take a look at some of the popular use cases of machine learning and data science in the HR department, that is the human resources department. Now, a very popular use case is resume screening. The HR department is typically the one who is dealing with hiring for various different job roles in a given organization. So they get a flood of resumes whenever a new opening is put out there. And you want to screen and filter out the resumes that are genuine and has a higher probability of getting selected for a given job opening. For this purpose, resume screening can be very helpful. Next one is employee churn prediction. Now, amongst the employees on roll, you want to predict if a given employee is likely to churn or likely to quit the organization or not. This is very useful for operational planning purposes and also can reveal what sort of patterns exist that is making the employees leave an organization. So, if some sort of a pattern comes through, the organization will be in a position to handle those patterns, make amends for it, and reduce the attrition rate in the future. On those fronts, this is very useful. Also, at the same time, this needs to be handled ethically because it should not create a bias for the employees on roll. Next is training recommendation. This is related to employees who are already on the job, and you want to recommend suitable trainings that an employee could take up so as to perform better on the job. Not only that, you need to prepare the employee for the next level positions as part of career growth opportunities. Next is predicting high performance hires. This deals with predicting amongst the given set of employees, predicting who is going to perform very well so that the organization can promote them. Next, let's look at customer support department related use cases. The first one is related to call volume forecasting. It's quite straightforward. The objective is to forecast the incoming call volume so that you will be able to manage the operations and requirements in a better fashion. In operator assignment, ML can help identify the nature and the difficulty of an incoming customer's request or a customer query so that you assign a qualified operator who will be knowledgeable enough to handle such a difficult or an easy level query. Depending on the nature of the query, you can assign the operator. Next is recent code prediction. This is also related to incoming customer queries. Now, when a customer writes an email or writes a query to the customer support, you want to know the reason behind the query without a human even reading it for the very first time. By doing this, once a customer support ticket is created, you can automatically follow it up with a suitable curated response. And when this is done right, it can actually help improve the customer satisfaction overall. And finally, wait time prediction. When a customer is trying to reach customer support, he or she wants to know the waiting time before which that query is going to be answered. You want to set the right expectation so that the customer experience can be gracious and seamless. So these are some of the customer support related use cases, and we have covered a lot of use cases across 4 different departments. And for all of these use cases, you can definitely leverage machine learning to have an overall positive impact for the business, be it higher revenues or be it customer experience or managing the resources. And I hope with this understanding, you get even more excited to master machine learning with Machine Learning Plus.